I love Dark Souls, and I also love using the same weapons over and over. Big swords, big damage, big smile on my face. But I thought to myself, maybe I need to try something new. Maybe I need variety. Maybe I need my weapons to randomly change on a timer against my will so that I'm forced to use almost every weapon in the game in the span of one playthrough. So that's exactly what I did. After being invited to the bonfire by everyone's favorite challenge punter, I named my character JK Speeds, because the weapons will be changing faster and faster, but we'll get into that. I start with the Knight class for that sweet vitality, grab the Master Key because, and push around some sliders to make Shrek's third wife before braving the asylum. I boot up the mod, link is in the description, and it starts randomizing the gear in both my hands. My immediate reaction is, how the heck am I gonna parry Gwyn? But that's a future problem. The randomizer will swap between all weapons and shields, no pyro flame, talismans, catalysts, or bows, keeping it to weapons only. Who, me? Milking and recycling something for another video at some point? I would never. They call me Terry Two Shields. Yeah, shields in both hands. This will surely be fun. My plan is to start the swap timer at 25 seconds, and every time a boss is killed, the timer goes down. I do end up tweaking this a bit, but we'll get there when we get there. For now, I skip my starting gear, don't really need it, get myself a refreshing orange Julius from Oscar, and hit the Asylum Demon with a sick plunge attack for 19 damage. Oh boy. What do you mean I can't just say I kill the ass demon and run for Firelink? What do you mean the Asylum Demon fight takes more than 12 seconds? I ran around getting in chip damage with my unwieldable weapon and waited for a lucky swap. The mace was up next and I was able to get some good hits in, but the fear of losing my usable weapon made me play a bit too aggressive and I got hit a few times. Embarrassing, I know. Getting rocked by the tutorial boss. I had a series of unlucky swaps until finally got the club and was able to finish the job. Old Thunder Thighs hits the ground and California finally breaks off into the Pacific. 24 seconds on swaps now. Mama Bird scoops me up and brings me to Firelink, where I go around collecting all the Firelink goodies. Mainly the Fire Bombs, Homer Bones, and Leloids to Talismans. After that, I take a little trip to New London and then back up to the Valley of Drakes. Also, a good thing to mention is that this mod doesn't use the weight of the randomly selected weapon, but instead uses the weight of the initial weapon I had in my inventory. If that makes sense. I took the elevator back to the Darkroot Basin, passed on picking up the Grass Crest Shield. Like if you cry every time. And then waited for a usable weapon so I could kill the Crystal Lizard for some Twinkle Sprinkle. I hatched an idea once I got to Andre, but didn't have the right materials to see it through. The weapon mod also has a setting where the randomized weapons are upgraded to the same level as the highest upgrade level you have achieved. So I ran back to the valley and safely got the ass. The store's straight sword. I decided I would do just a little bit of cheating so I could actually wield most of the weapons, otherwise they would all be useless for the time being. So I bought 600 arrows from Andre and turned them into 600 souls of a proud knight. Just a small loan of 1,000,000 souls. But you know what won't cost you a small loan of 1,000,000 souls? The sponsor of today's video, ZocDoc. I am quite literally the worst procrastinator on the planet. Even small things like making a doctor's appointment feels like a daunting task, but a platform like ZocDoc makes it simple. I've been putting off getting a few checkups for a while because my experience with booking appointments now is to call and then wait a month, which makes me feel like I won't even need it by then, so why waste a doctor's time? ZocDoc allows you to easily search for doctors in-network with over 150,000 providers and 200 specialties across all 50 states. It's free to use and allows you to see current appointment openings in real time, and you can typically get an appointment in 24 to 72 hours and sometimes even the same day. If you're like me and small tasks feel like big asks, especially when it comes to health stuff, ZocDoc can make it a quick and easy to manage process. No need for long sessions searching for doctors or multiple rounds of phone tag, just one website that makes it feel like less of a chore. I'm making strides to take care of my health more proactively, and you can too. To start prioritizing your health today, you can click the link in the description or the pinned comment, or go to ZocDoc.com/bird to learn more. Thank you again to ZocDoc for sponsoring this video, and now, back to the run. I upgraded my ass to +2, got my strength and dex to 40 each, and then dark signed so I wouldn't be tempted to use the remainder of the 1.2 million. I still can't use anything with the faith or int requirement, but at least I'll be able to smack things more often. I say this with all the disrespect in the world, the curved sword moveset is straight up garbage. Why do I have to do a little yee-haw cowboy move before every swing? Just hit him. It was time for the heckin' gargoyles. Absolute Miyazaki. I always forget how goated the cutscenes are in Dark Souls 1. Right out the gate, I got lucky with a fire-infused spear. Once you start upgrading weapons, all the infusions are also randomized, and trust me, this is more of a curse than a blessing. Immediately after the spear, I was looked upon with favor and given the gargoyle halberd, which did just a little bit of damage. I was greedy for the kill on the first gargoyle, but punished I was not. I was able to take out number 1, while number 2 showed up fashionably late, tailless, and ashamed. My ego was so big it got caught on the flames, and I took a sippy break just to be safe. Dying to the second garg might be worse than pinwheel. I would never emotionally recover from that. I finished off the gargoyle fight with a divine-infused longsword? Straight sword? I don't know, some sword that swang fast and did good damage, and then it was time to ring that heckin' bell. 23 seconds on the timer. I showed a group of hollows the girth of a randomly acquired Zwei Honda, pancaked the channeler, made my way to Firelink, and then headed for the burd. This is an all bosses run after all. Who says you can't power stance in Dark Souls 1? These offhand attacks are super duper effective. I hit a sick backstep to poise through the stagger of the Hellkite Drake landing. Yeah, I'm a gamer. And then I took out my frustration with the residents with the blunt end of a shield. This mod has a sick sense of humor, and I was turned into ambidextrous Patches mid-fight. He's not even here and he's playing tricks on me. I successfully dodged Donkey Kong's barrel for the second time in my entire life, killed a lizard with the Taurus Demon's hammer, and entered the fog, quickly clearing off the roof with the reinforced club. I ran to initiate the fight with the raging demon with a shield on my back and, well, the shield in my hands. Despite both my shields, though, I took an unblocked great axe to the back, and Mr. Taurus, satisfied with his work, took a swan dive off the bridge to deal the ultimate blow to my self-worth. No matter how far I get in this run, I never will have beaten the Taurus demon. The timer is now at 22 seconds per weapon, and I said hello to my lover Solaire. He was looking absolutely radiant, and we totally matched. And there I was, straight up jorking my giant halberd on the bridge, waiting for the dragon to jump down. And I was about to finish my edge sesh when it actually did. And I had no choice but to stop and run to the bonfire. I carried on to the courtyard and showed the Fangbor who was boss. Yeah, that's right, Bloodborne fans. Dark Souls 1 did it first. I made my way through the parish and bought the Crest of Artorias, recommended by 4 out of 5 dentists, and journeyed into the garden once more, opening the gate and then getting absolutely stunted on by one of the forest hunters. Alvina hisses in my general direction. I do that to de-aggro the forest hunters, but I'm pretty sure that it only works once. I grabbed the stoner gear and then killed a mushroom child just for fun. That and the sound of a loon soothes me. So what if I have to go all Anakin versus the younglings to hear it? I opened the door to Sif's arena, watched as she howled at the moon, got really excited that I had a Black Knight halberd in my hands, and then instantly choked. Try number 2 started out strong with a few hits of the war pick, but it wasn't long before I was tossed a shield in my right hand and a katana in my left, once again doing pitiful damage as I waited for something better to find its way into my inventory. I was given the dark sword next, and I think it's raw. Next question. All that means is better base damage but no scaling. Solid path for an early game weapon, but falls off like the Drake sword. After smacking the newspaper on Sif's snout a few times for getting into the trash, I got some trash myself. The old bone wheel shield. This thing has the potential to be awesome, if only it applied bleed. The heavy attack spins the shield in front of you and it hits 3 times while also blocking during the attack animation. Honestly, pretty cool. Maxed out it can do some good damage, but here it's underperforming. A few swaps later, I had the bandit's knife getting in a bit of damage here and there, and then was blessed with a divine great axe. The damage was incredible, and I laid on the pain, spamming R1 as much as I could while I had a decent weapon. Always greedy, never punished. I got Sif to limp percentage and ran around until I got a suitable weapon to put her down. Another divine infusion, this time on a short sword, and it was all I needed to send her to the great beyond. With my timer now at 21 seconds, I pushed on through the garden, and it was time to challenge the moonlit butterfly. The butterfly does not respect the sippy break. This fight was all about luck. Luck that I would have a weapon that did decent damage when the butterfly decides to float down and eat some moss. I had a bit of a hard go, dodging some of the spells, but the first perch of the cycle, I was graced by the presence of a man-serpent greatsword and then a falchion, both bringing the bug down well under half its health bar in no time. Another round of dodging spells, from the moonbeam ice cream to the tactical nuke. I guess the old butterfly has a 25 kill streak, but I was about to end it. The bug decided to perch again, and this time would be her last. I ran up to her with a reinforced club and started spamming R1 like my life depended on it. The butterfly was low and about to charge the explosive AoE, and with one last hurrah, I went for a jumping heavy to end the fight, only to have my club taken away from me in the final moments before it connected, turning into a bone wheel shield. With my confidence shattered, I was getting hit by spell after spell, healing up as much as I could in between blows. The butterfly perched again, and I have never known true defeat until now. I had a shield in my hand, and the damage done with it wasn't enough to get a kill due to the regeneration effect from the moss. I went to my inventory to pop a humanity for safety, but went down to the magical bird shot of the butterfly's 410. I went back with a vengeance. The first cycle, I was granted a spear that dealt just as much damage as the previous fight, and then got bombarded with more bombing runs. Cycle 2 gave me a scythe that did okay damage, but was quickly swapped to a shield once more. I swear I have never seen the butterfly drop this many bombs in a single fight before. I don't know if it's because I usually one-cycle it or what, but this feels a bit ridiculous. I lock in, she perches again, and I squashed the bug with 2 pokes of a raw halberd. I went back to Firelink Shrine and introduced Lautric to the sheer force of my pale green kneecap, and now, with the Fap Ring in my hand, I went through the valley to Blighttown. I even hit the sick McNasty aura skip along the way. What a backstep. Didn't mean to flex on you like that. If there's one boss I was confident to beat, even with crappy damage, it was Spider Mommy. Awooga. I started the fight with a Painting Guardian sword, but got quickly swapped to the Cestus, and I got to work fisting away at the large abdomen of the spider. After getting some solid hits in, I was rudely swapped to a fire-infused washing pole. A lot of reach, but only 30 damage, as Miss Lag here is immune to all fire damage. I must commend this mod for its sick sense of humor, because after the first fire-infused katana, I get another. This time an Iaito? I don't know. And then a chaos-infused bandit's knife. I love getting all the bleed weapons when she's immune to that too. After that it was a bone wheel shield, and then laying on some big damage with the hammer of Vamos. It does fire damage as well, but it also does a ton of physical, so I'm not complaining. I got a couple hits in with another Painting Guardian sword, and then, oh boy, back to fire weapons. If only this was Dark Souls 2, my thrusting would be a lot more effective. I got a few hits in with the standard club, and then brought Quelaag to her knees with a heavy attack from the demon's great hammer. Do spiders even have knees? Either way, I rang her bell, and then I rang the second bell of awakening. With the timer now under 20 seconds per weapon, I thought it would be a nice idea to clean up Ceaseless's discharge while we were down in the area. I picked up his sister's gold-hemmed lingerie set, ran back to the fog gate, and the incessant splooger goes down with 5 hits from my longsword. And we're down to 18 seconds per weapon. I homeboned back to Firelink, and it was time to curl up in a ball and go back to the asylum to take on the Stray Demon. But the real bosses of the asylum revisit are those damn torch hollows. I dropped down through the crumbling floor, and boy oh boy, it was time for Ass Demon number 2. The boss helped me take care of the hollows that came in after me, and after that, I was at the whim of my random weapons. Lucky for me, this guy is big, slow, and has 4 moves, so I just ran around until I was given a usable weapon. The claws came in clutch, and I was able to bleed this bozo for big damage. I feel like I usually sleep on bleed in Dark Souls 1 because it's a flat amount of damage instead of a percentage, but on a run like this, where I need every ounce I can get, bleed feels like a very welcomed status. The Gargoyle Tail Axe was proving useful, and even better than that, the fire-infused halberd was taking off big chunks of health. Gotta love all the ass demons being weak to fire. I finished the fight with a quick flurry of blows from a scimitar, and then backed off to let him blow his final load, only to get the last hit with a reinforced club. I remembered to get the doll and pissed off the Black Knight guarding it, and then I duked it out with Mr. Backlogs himself. When life gives you lemon, you make lemon flayed. I tried to make it back to Mama's nest, but died to the boss at the front door. Also, we're at 17 seconds for the swaps. I talked to the ambiguously evil Snake Man, and then made my way back to Undeadburg and totally hit the skip to the lower burg on my first try. Of course I didn't. It took a while. But I have been looked upon with favor this day. You shall know it, as the day I got through lower Undeadburg on my first attempt. Many a time I have fallen to the dogs outside of the Capra Demon's arena. Some may even say more times than the demon itself. But nay, today Miyazaki has blessed this run, and I was able to swiftly unlock the Firelink shortcut. I marched my way back to the arena and challenged Capra to trial by combat. It and the dogs found me most guilty. I went in a second time and was able to swiftly take care of the pouncing pooches right near the fog gate, finally evening it out to a fair fight. I ran up the stairs and prepared for a plunge attack, and just before my feet left the ledge, my hammer turned into a Baymore, and I nearly took out the boss in one hit. Thank you, mod. Very cool. It was time to take on the depths, and by take on the depths, I mean jump over the railing, roll down the giant rat's food chute, and slide down the second most disappointing slip and slide. The most disappointing being the one with the 3D goggles and the shark. The commercials made it look really cool. I jogged right to the fog for the Dragon of Gape, not even taking out the channeler. With my weapons now changing every 16 seconds, I had more opportunity to cycle through some badass bonk sticks. I started with a Zwei in the wrong hand, but then got my hands on the Demon Great Machete, before forgetting that the old Gaper over here is just one big hitbox when it's grumpy. I miraculously lived with a sliver of HP, and to my pleasant surprise, whips actually go crazy. I smack this thigh, you know my whips don't lie. It's starting to feel it, right? Shakira has nothing on me, but my whip was quickly swapped out for a short sword and then a war pick, and then I got my hands on the bingo blade, and I used it to betail the gaping dragon. If beheaded is a thing, betailed can be a thing too. It was around this point where I regretted leaving the channeler alive. Not only were the buffs pretty consistent, but I was having to dodge a hail of magic missiles from up on the balcony. Mom, can you pick me up? I want to go home. After a few bad swaps, I ended the fight with the Great Scythe and we're now down to 15 seconds. I made my way through Sen's Fortress with style. You just got scripted bouldered. Send this to all your friends to totally scripted boulder them. I learned my lesson when it came to stage hazards, and I went up top to give the boulder bro some melatonin in the form of a server and some claws. Nighty-night. I started the fight with the golem doing my best Minecraft Steve cosplay, and he was so mad he got me with the Sid from Toy Story grab. I recovered physically and emotionally, and luck was on my side as I got a great axe. I was doing an insane amount of damage and easily staggered the golem and sent him packing off the side of the arena. Or so I thought. I was waiting around for the old victory achieved, but it never came. To my absolute shock and horror, I looked up to see the golem was just taking 5 in his safe space above the arena. They fly now? He recovered and jumped back into the fray. I gave him a few smacks with a shield and then finished off the tin can with a bandit's knife. I was feeling like the weapons were swapping a bit too slow, so after the golem, I bumped the timer down to 10 seconds to speed things up a bit. I took the battle bus to Anor Londo and dropped in ready for action. I tried doing a rafter skip that saves half a second and failed, so instead just did the other rafter skip that saves half a second. The archer bros and batwing demons gave me a bit of a scare, but once I was face to face with this silver loser, luck would have me swap to a shield and I took him out before he even had a chance to act. Solaire was looking mighty fine by the bonfire. I would let him summon me smoothly any day. I did the completely normal progression route through the area, and it was time for Ornstein and Smo, my arch nemesis in runs like this. They are peak though. I knew I wouldn't get very far in this fight being greedy, and I had to wait for decent weapons to attack with. My plan is the same as almost every other time coming in here. Kill the Dragon Rider first because Super Smo is basically a free boss. I had a rough few weapons and a close call, but it was becoming therapeutic to just run around the boss arena, dodging and praying I would get something other than a shield to use. The Baymore showed its face for one good hit, and then the Demon's Great Machete. I was a bit greedy, and may have gotten a little punished, but got one in for big damage right after. This is where I learned something pivotal and also detrimental to the run. The upgrades are random, and the infusions and upgrade paths are also random. My weapon durability is based on the weapon I'm using before it gets randomized, and there's a weird interaction with the mod where every time a crystal weapon is cycled, my durability goes down by 30. In my inventory, I have 2 shields with 300 durability equipped, which means roughly every 10 crystal infusions that pop into my hands, my weapons will be at risk, and I'm capped at 70% damage. Super fun, right? Ornstein was low and hit me with a glitched dash. I was running low on heals, and I still had a whole second phase to deal with. I finally got another decent weapon and was able to finish off the one who rides dragons. And it was just me and the cannibal who laughs unpleasantly the entire fight. Turn off the music and listen close next time you fight them. Smo literally just laughs. I don't have much to say about Super Smo. I had a sick hit with the Dragon King Great Axe, and mayhaps a bit of greed and a close call or two. But Super Smo is a joke compared to Super Ornstein, and I take out the Anor Londo lads on my first try. It's about time I had a good first try ONS. Very satisfying. Thank you, game. My weapons are only lasting 9 seconds now, and so am I when I open the door to get the Lord Vessel. Who cares if it's an illusion? After praising the suns, I went to my good friend and max upgraded my Twinkle weapon so that all my weapons could be maxed out. And now we're cooking. Either that or only the Twinkle weapons that I cycle through are maxed out, because sometimes I feel like I still do bad damage. Some dumbass forgot to hit record on OBS, so here's a bit of stream footage. Shameless plug, these runs are streamed on YouTube and Twitch. It's a good time. I got vored by the big snake man and he spit me out in Firelink Altar so I could place the Lord Vessel. I definitely didn't forget this time. And then, it was time to round me up some Lord Souls, starting with the Bed of Chaos. Peak boss design, am I right? But before fighting that dumb witch, I made my way through the demon ruins, got invaded by Kirk, and then came back hollowed to avoid his prickly sword a second time. It was time for the final installation of the Thunder Thighs trifecta as I'm faced with the Stray Demon. I got some good damage in with the Scythe, that's actually a Bardiche, that's classified as a halberd by the game, and then went to town with a lightning-infused Bastard Sword. Me personally, I think this is the second worst arena after the Capra Demon. Who's the person who thought, hey, what if we put a bunch of roots and stumps everywhere that players could get stuck on all the time? I'd like a word. 2 big hits from one big scythe took out nearly 1,000 damage, and then the ass stays true to its name and puts up some whelming damage. People use over and underwhelmed all the time. We're bringing back whelmed, baby. I played the patience game of waiting for good weapons, but I still got some chip damage in when I could. I mean, it's just another ass demon, bro. How hard could it be? The last couple minutes of the fight was chip damage with shields, but in the end I used a scimitar to slay the Stray. 8-second swaps. Yippee. The Centipede Demon was up next, and being able to summon Sunbro if I needed was a comforting feeling, but I would do my darndest to take out this abhorrent incendiary insect. Why on earth is the Centipede Demon a cutscene boss, by the way, of all bosses? The Centipede Demon has more aura than Gwyn. I ran to the safe space in the arena and got brutalized by the Centipede on my way. Somehow, I was able to recover and just barely make it over with my life intact. The Zweihander graced my right hand with its presence, and I was so excited that I pre-swung, missed, and it was gone forever. Well, not forever, but at the randomizer's whim. I betailed the demon and thought it was a really good idea, at first, until my weapon switched to a shield and once more I was doing no damage, now stuck on an island with 2 things that wanted to kill me. Thankfully, I was able to quickly take out the sentient tail crawling around and then laid into the boss. Holy screen shake, Batman. Forgot just how much this guy stomps around. I feel like I'm experiencing the rumbling. The demon also regenerated its tail? I always forget that it can regen the tail. I got lucky with my weapon swaps doing good damage, and once again the crystal weapon bug put me at risk, but I was able to swat the bug and squeak out the victory. I was about to dip my toe in the beautiful Lost Izalith when my Twitch chat said they would cancel me via Google Doc on Twitter if I didn't save Solaire. Being soul rich but humanity poor left me with only one option. I got grabbed by an egg-burdened enemy at the start of the demon ruins and loitered in an ailing woman's hospital room until I was infected. Then, I bought the poison and toxic mist pyromancies from Engi, but forgot that he doesn't give you the flame. So I went back to the depths to free Laurentius so I could become a fully fledged pyromancer from the Great Swamp, and I purchased an oven mitt from him. Then it was back to the Izalith shortcut before Fire Sage so I could blow my toxic mist through the door. The mod only randomizes the first slot, but there was a moment where I thought I'd have to be real quick with it. With Solaire's destiny secured, I jogged across the Fire Lake through the field of undead dragon dumpies, got the secret bonfire, and then ran my way to the Bed of Chaos fog gate, ready to take on anything that stood in my way. Except for a daughter of chaos with a grudge, I suppose. I guess I did kill one sister and loot the corpse of another. But also, the range on that chaos storm was messed up. I slid down the chute of chaos hoping I would still be able to cheese the boss. I really hate fighting this thing. Well, fighting it, that's a stretch. I was unable to set up the cheese with a bow. I don't mind bending the rules to save Solaire, but cheesing a boss is a different story. I lined up my firebomb targets best I could with binoculars, and got the first globe orb thingy, but without my crosshair, I was unable to hit the second. And after a few bombs thrown, I was forced to do a Burning Man cosplay. It has been many moons since I had to take on the Bed of Chaos with normal methods, and I was introduced to gravity more times than I'd like to admit. Not even due to the boss, I'm just a dumbass. After a few tries, I finally got myself to the second ball of mystical magic, and after pondering the orb, I quit out to reset myself and slid back down to the front of the boss safely. I was brushed to the side with one sweep of her long arm, and then I just threw myself recklessly into the pit of despair. The old Witch of Izalith felt bad for me, and on my next attempt, she smacked me straight down to land on the root below. And then, after mashing roll and praying for no firestorm, I squashed the bug and put the chaos to bed. Death comes for us all. Death what? Next up on my hit list were the 4 kings, and I bring gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Durr. I ran through New Londo away from the scary ghost ladies and then talked to Ingward, who was so sick of his job he basically asked me to kill his boss. I drained the ruins and then dropped down the abyss hole and was ready to bring on the pain. Doesn't matter if I'm ready or not though, the weapon cycler decides if I'm ready to bring on the pain, and the answer would be no. I was the one in pain, because I had no DPS for the DPS race. I was taking every bit of damage that I could get, but as soon as the second king spawned when I hadn't taken out the first, I knew I was cooked. Or magicked, I guess. It had been a while since I actually had to fight 4 kings, but what makes it worse is that it's 4 kings at once. The swinging of swords could be dealt with, but a flurry of painful purple projectiles prevented me from progress and I proceeded to perish. I gave the kings a few cracks, but came to the decision that it would actually be easier to take them on when my weapons were swapping faster. More opportunities to cycle big damage sticks, and less time with 2 shields in my hands. It was time to pivot to the catacombs, and I'll be damned if I'm gonna let this mod put me in the Pinwheel Hall of Shame. I took out the Necromancer grabbing the bonfire and restored my humanity so I could bring Mr. Jenkins with me into the fight. I had this really funny idea of dropping in and using binoculars to watch him duke it out with the dysfunctional family, but after I got situated, I turned around and he had already landed the killing blow. It was time for a brief jaunt through the Tomb of the Giants. It's not that bad with no light, just go past the skeletal pooch, make your way through the fog gate, and turn to look at the pickup on the ground. Don't pick it up though, just in case you die. Walk off the ledge where the pickup is, do some rollin' and droppin', and you're through. Now, if you actually wanted to loot and explore the place, yeah, you're screwed. I have no words of advice. I got invaded by my best friend Leroy, but didn't have the heart or weapons to kill him, so I ran for my life and took an arrow to the face hole. Gonna have me looking like the last giant after that one. I dropped into Nito's arena and said goodbye to half my health bar before getting impaled by his toxic screaming sword slam. To my surprise and joy, I was given a divine weapon out the gate to take out some of his minions permanently. Unfortunately for me, Nito somehow managed to get me with his toxic sword, and my health bar was draining faster than Roddy and flushed away. Did you know that was Hugh Jackman? My Estus was low and I wasn't getting very lucky on my weapon rolls. Now I know how kite feels. I used Nito to take out the leftover Skelebros whenever I could, trying to keep them down for the count as often as possible, but chip damage from them and the big guy himself was hard to avoid. I tried to keep my health full with humanity, but with my low damage, no more divine weapons, and the toxins coursing through my body, I wasn't able to out-heal it, and eventually, after nearly a 10-minute fight, I got mogged by Nito's aura. Yeah, 10 minutes of wailing on him with mostly shields. So fun. After all my healing in the first attempt, I had 14 soft humanity in the boss room, and I kinda wanted to kindle the bonfire, so I ran back to the arena, dropped down to get my bloodstain, and then homeboned out of there. A rare occasion where I actually utilized the rite of kindling, but I got this fire up to 20 flasks and then made my way back to Skeletor. I have the power! The power of a divine weapon once again to take out all the little idiots in the arena, so Papa could focus all his attention on Big Bad Nito. It was another nearly 10-minute fight, but since it was just me and the boss, hashing it out, heated rivalry style, I was able to poke and prod him with many a weapon until he finally fell. The biggest hurdle in this fight was the short-ranged weapons. So many times the void of his cloak would shield his body, denying me the sweet 12 attack damage from the blunt end of a shield. But I was in it for the long haul, and that's not even the longest fight in the run. After Nito was dispatched and my weapons swapping every 5 seconds, I still didn't feel all too confident with the 4 kings, so I went to pay a visit to the Hydra. Remember when we were back in the asylum and didn't get the rusted iron ring? I remember. Pepperidge Farm remembers. Unfortunately for Pete, I'm not able to get up on the Hydra's back, so wading around in ankle-deep water, doing damage bit by bit, would have to do. I do not want to show you the pain and agony of the Hydra fight. There might have been a very dumb gravity death, but other than that, I was able to chop off all the heads, dance on its grave, and then run to duke it out with the golden crystal golem. It was in my head. It knew all of my moves. But then, Dusk was freed, and it was off to the archives to get the pendant, but first, kill a psychotic, semi-immortal scaleless dragon. I made fun of the boars who got stuck on the doorway. Look at those idiots. Oops. And then I went up the elevator and cried as I ascended, as I would not be able to pull off Duke Skip without my trusty bow. Look at me, frail and weak, unable to do skips without basic setup tools. One day I'll learn how to freehand it, but for now, I took the L and went to prison. My cellmate had the schematics tattooed on his back, so it was only a matter of time before I could execute my prison break. What a lovely noise. It's definitely not the worst thing I've ever heard in my entire life. I sprinted past the Pasakas with ease and dodged the snake folk on the balcony, grabbed my key, and then pulled the lever to turn off the world's worst record. You have a lovely vintage gramophone, and you use it to play that? I opened the front door and I was finally free to make my way through the rest of the archives. I was straight up cranking it behind the bookshelves. And by it, let's just say, a rotating staircase. I grabbed yay old balcony bonfire and then it was time to brave the crystal caves. I say that like it's not just a straight run. Boring if anything, but not too dangerous. In the heart of the cave, I was confronted with the biggest snitch of them all. And you know what they say about snitches? They get their immortality crystal broken and then smacked around with a strange assortment of weapons. I threw on the old paladin armor that I scooped up off Leroy's corpse for its superb curse resistance, and I baited Seath into breaking his own crystal. Classic. I had 4 Estus and a dream to kill this one bald nutsack on the first try. My weapons weren't doing a ton of damage, but I was able to keep a solid cycle of running in for a few hits and running away. I swear, sometimes speedrunning skews my perception of boss fights because when I'm not 5-shotting Seath with a halberd and the red tearstone ring, it's actually pretty fun. I tanked a lot of the crystal rock candy, but with armor this good, I could sit in it all day and not get cursed. Or damaged too badly. It was a slow start to the fight until I was blessed with a fire-infused scimitar and then a pike, doing absolutely nutty damage to Seath's nut with every poke. I was determined to pop that thing. After a few more cycles of running and waiting, a falchion made its way into my hands, and that, paired with the great scythe and then an obsidian greatsword, I land the killing blow. How's it feel, Seath, to be a bitch? I went back to the archives to get the pendant from the super cooperative blue golem man and then made my way back to the Darkroot Basin, where of course, I get the Black Knight halberd. On this run, of all runs, thank you so much. I also picked up fake Havel's ring while I was in the area. What's a Dark Souls run without the Fap Havel combo, right? I got sucked into Manus' dark chasm of old and it was time to duke it out with everyone's favorite guard, Ian. I'm here to fight Ian. Ian kicked my dog and stole my coupons from the mailbox. Ian came into my living room and did the weird butt scooch across my new carpet. Ian looked me in the eye as he drank the last of my milk just after I had poured a bowl of cereal. Ian warmed up my food in the microwave and the first bite was too hot and the second was freezing cold. Ian brings 14 items to the self-checkout even though the sign says maximum 10. I was getting my toes tickled by the ruthless manticore, but I was learning, evolving, realizing that I still don't have enough experience in the Dark Souls 1 DLC, but we'll have to fix that at a later date. I was dodging well and trying not to be greedy for attack windows, but when they're as small as they are, and when 50% of the time I have a shield in my right hand, it's hard to not get called by the green goblin mask of damage. Norman. I'm somewhat of a damage man myself. I was finally getting my hands on some decent weapons and the perfect window. I'm talking a front bay window overlooking an open field on a foggy morning. The stars aligned, and I betailed the Sanctuary Guardian. I'm telling you, betailed is totally gonna be a thing. No more poison skip it for you, sir. Or ma'am. Every bit of damage counts. I was taking every opportunity to retaliate no matter the weapon. A few damage with a shield, a few hundred with, well, something better than a shield. I take back everything I said earlier about curved swords because ending the fight with this little spin move was pretty peak. We take those. Ian's watch has ended and my weapons will now swap every 2 seconds. Cause I thought it would be fun to make him go even faster. I got to the sanctuary and talked to Elizabeth. She's just a fun guy who sells repair powder. Yes, I am still having issues with my durability. With my weapons swapping faster, I decided to go to the 4 kings and give them the old university attempt. Am I allowed to make the same joke in every video? Who knows, but you sure have to listen to it. The kings started off with some of that lame magic, but I was starting off with some decent DPS this time. I was staying in close, and at this point, with the time in between swaps, I don't really have time to see what weapon I have. I just swing in an opening and hope it's not one of like 6 weapons that I can't wield. The second king spawns in, but the first one goes down before they truly make it a 2-on-1 fight. I got a cathartic smack with the Zweihander, and seeing that damage, I knew this was gonna be the one. The second king was trying to stall, but I was finally having a generational run with my luck. Good weapon after good weapon. Or at least the bad ones weren't staying around for nearly as long. With my weapons swapping as fast as they were, there's a weird interaction with the attack animation where if it's longer and the weapon swaps mid-animation, it messes with the damage and range. Kind of funny as a general thing, not funny when I'm fighting for my life against a boss with a timer. King number 3 was overstaying his welcome, and it allowed 4 and 5 to spawn in and begin floating ominously in the background. I may be getting unlucky with a few swaps, but I was getting very lucky with the aggro. With the 3rd king down, I still had 2 in the arena and more on the way. They were stalling once again, and I got caught in a grab, and I would have had the humanity sucked straight out of my mouth if I had any left over. The end was in sight. I was getting surrounded, 3 kings on screen, and I already made the 3 kings joke when I mentioned the 4 kings the first time, so now I'm kind of mad. I was greedy for the damage, but it didn't matter, because no punishment was received for dethroning the multiple monarchs, and once more, the abyss is empty. 1 second weapon swaps, by the way. This would surely be a fun time to go take on Artorias from one abyss walker to another. Yeah, the 4 kings have feet, look it up. Miyazaki thought he could hide those dogs in the abyss. Think again. I ran my way through the Darkroot Garden, I mean the Royal Wood, through the Pitchfork Prostate Examiners, gracefully backstepping under Calamite, and beyond the Peener Snipper Tree People. Those are their actual names, I swear. I ran right by Chester from Disney 365, and it was time to take on my next boss. With all the info on all things Ulasil 365 days a year, my name is Burd, and I'm here with Artorias the Abyss Walker. I think my weapon swapping at this speed does some funky stuff with the boss AI, but after a slight hiccup, the fight was on. Once again, my inexperience with some of these bosses was exposed and on full display, but I swear it wasn't all my fault. You see, I like two-handing my weapon, and the weapons swap in both of my hands until there's one that can't be two-handed, or for whatever other reason forces me to hold it in my other hand, and I get a weapon swap animation. And during this animation, I am unable to dodge. I had no idea. I thought I was just bad. I mean, don't get me wrong, I am bad, but not that bad. Not get hit by literally everything bad. Between that little fun quirk of the mod and also the degradation of my weapons anytime I swapped to Crystal, I was having a bad time. Many deaths were had to Artorias. Call me the Abyss, because he was walking all over me. I finally learned that I had to keep my weapon in only one hand, and also to use his buff time for some buffs of my own. I could get off 2 consumables in the time he took to buff. Sometimes it was a heal and a repair powder, sometimes it was 2 repair powder, and I just prayed I wouldn't cycle through Crystal. You can take off certain categories of weapons, but not infusion. And yes, I hear you ask, Nathan, why don't you just take shields out of the rotation? 'Cause where's the fun in that? This mod was teaching me how to balance my gameplay. Greed versus patience, damage versus dodge, yin versus yang. I achieved my flow state. I was the true dragon warrior. There was no secret ingredient. I was aggressive when I should be. I was passive to bait out the moves I wanted. And I was getting over my hurdle of staying locked in for longer fights. I'm not saying this was a broken straight sword run or anything, but the damage was few and far between on the good hits. The fight was 11 minutes and 50 seconds. 11 minutes and 50 seconds of Lion's Claw. Who knew his pockets could be that full of sand? I duked it out with Artorias until the bitter end and came out victorious on my 7th attempt. I guess it wasn't that many, but sure felt like a long time. My weapons are now swapping every half a second, and we only have a couple bosses left in the run. It's a good thing too, because I have very little sanity left. I ran through Ulasil as fast as I could, avoiding all the bloathead combatants, and I beelined it right for the chest that held the crest key. There was no way I was fighting a mimic in my current state. Thank you, past Nathan, for picking up the Firelink loot, and I used a Leloid's to talisman to sing the mimic a sweet lullaby, and I picked the key out of its teeth. I gave up Artorias' soul to one of his groupies and then ran through the valley of vile canines to Calamite's arena. Did you know that I hate dogs in FromSoft games? After bearing witness to the one-eyed monster, I went back to Goff, who offered to shoot it in the face. It's too bad he's blind and hit him in the wing. I would have loved the free kill. My first attempt against Black Dragon Calamite did not go swell. In fact, some may say by the look of the health bar that I died almost instantly, but it was actually about 4.5 minutes of agony. Also, 4.5 minutes of learning boss moves once again. My second attempt at Calamite would be my last. I swear, I have no idea why, but I struggle with Calamite the least in the DLC. Even the Sanctuary Guardian rocks and socks me, but the cute little dragon? Something just clicks. Even with the messed up hitboxes, Calamite is no match for JK speeds. I'm not saying it was flawless, but I was locked and loaded. The best openings were where he reared up on his hind legs to shoot fire, and I was able to get a bunch of hits off with 3 different weapons. Because of the resistances, most weapons hardly dented the thick scales of the beast, but every now and then I was able to hit for yellow damage. Every hit counts, chip damage or not, and if it bleeds, it can die. I feel a bit badly not saying too much about this fight, but the weapons kept cycling. I stayed locked in, taking every bit of damage I can get, and after 9.5 minutes and a killing blow with the Black Knight sword, Calamite goes down, and my weapons now change every 0.25 seconds. I was mentally preparing for Manus and decided to meme roll down the first Ulasil elevator shaft. Meme rolling occurs when your equip load is between 25 to 29%. Make sure it's percent and not units. This lets you keep rolling in the air, and if you time it just right, you can use the iframes of your roll to not take fall damage. First try, by the way. I ran past the chained prisoner, blocking my second elevator, and quickly made my way to the dungeon. I fell through the ground and followed the glowing cat in order to free Sif for reasons. Look, Manus is hard, okay? I'd like to have some options at my disposal. It was at this point when I remembered that I forgot about Gwendolyn and Priscilla. How could I be so foolish? I made my way to the Dark Moon tomb and decided once again to do the quit out skip instead of going to get the ring, and it did not take me 30 minutes this time. Lucky me though, I get to practice it again because my first run did not go so hot, and my second try wasn't much better. But on my third try, I ran like my life depended on it. I chased Gwendolyn down the hallway as fast as I could and got some damage in before every teleport. I dodged the little spells, I dodged the big spells, and I strafed the arrows. With my weapon swapping this fast, no main hand shield could stand in the way between me and victory, and another body gets laid to rest in the Dark Moon tomb. I know I said weapons would swap faster with every boss, but being at 0.25 seconds now, I was worried that going lower would break the mod, and I was saving the final time reduction for Gwyn. I made my way to the painting in Anor Londo and admired it before getting Mary Poppins'd inside. I performed a cheeky little skip over the railing, killed an undead dragon blocking the bridge, and then another cheeky little skip to go under the ass and drop down in order to get to Priscilla. All bosses means all bosses. Foot lovers, look away. Maybe I'll do a poll in the future, whether to spare Dragon Lady or add her to the tally, but for now, not even the painted world is a safe haven for her. My ego let me enter the fight with only a few flasks, but I was easily able to break her poise and make her drop invisibility. I was dealing some good damage, but it was counteracted by getting locked in long animations for weapons I couldn't wield. I got a string of lucky weapons and got Priscilla below half health, but she saw Tony Ridinger coming around the corner and decided to go invisible once again. No Tony loaf being served for dinner tonight, Priscilla. Only death. I looked for her dark souls in the snow to keep track of her movement. Wait, maybe that's why they call it Dark Souls. And I kept on the pressure. However, she wasn't revealed again until I landed the killing blow. What seeketh me, I seeketh thee. With the rest of the base game cleared up besides Gwyn, there truly were only 2 more bosses standing between me and the end of the run. I went back to the dungeon and prepared what would be the worst fight of the playthrough. Manus, Papa of the Abyss. Manus was a rough fight, and no, I'm not saying that because I summoned Sif for a few goes of it. She barely helped, by the way. I did feel bad though. Not sure if you knew this, but even when Sif gets to low health in summon form, she starts limping around the arena, and it's really sad. Manus is simply the boss I know the least. Whenever I fight him, I usually have big damage and it's over in a minute or two, but here, now, I'm at the whim of whatever weapon or shield, mostly shield, pops into my hand at any given moment. It's also a lot of muscle memory to keep myself from two-handing my weapon. Shields are supposed to be fashionable backpacks, everyone knows this. I felt like Doctor Strange going to bargain with Dormammu, and after getting beaten senselessly for an eternity, I decided to go get the pendant to make phase 2 just a little easier. With the weapons swapping so quickly, the odds of a crystal weapon cycling through my hand increased by a lot, and I had to find time to pop repair powder in the midst of the fight. It was just hard to juggle 3 different consumables during the fight because my brain is small, and I'd had enough. Why should I get double punished for a bug in the mod? Why should I have to risk my life to salt bay some pixie dust on my weapon every 30 seconds? I searched everywhere online and couldn't find an unlimited durability mod, but I found the next best thing. 9,999 durability and free repairs at the bonfire. With less consumables in my hand and not having to worry about doing no damage out of nowhere, I had a new lease on life and locked in for the fight. The damage still wasn't the best, but on occasion, between the chip damage, I was able to chunk away at Manus's meaty health pool. Plus, using the pendant to deflect his dark spells is always so peak. I magic mogged him with my pendant maxing. The best way to learn a boss fight is to stay in that fight for as long as possible, and lucky for me, this encounter with Manus took a whopping 12 minutes and 40 seconds. The longest fight in the playthrough. But I finally feel like I learned some things that'll help me be better in this fight in future runs. With the Abyss finally at peace, kind of. My bad, Dusk. My weapons are now swapping every 0.1, yes, 0.1 seconds, and it was time to head to the kiln. I offered my souls to the Lord Vessel, opened the door, and ran straight to Gwyn. I entered the fog gate and was ready to pull the plug on Gramps. He had been kept alive by the first flame for far too long. The way I saw it, there was really only one strategy here. Full Havel, face tank everything, and spam R1. Just hoping you get some solid damage or enough hits in for a stagger. I did my best to avoid some of his hits, and lucky for me, when you fat roll, you're stuck on the ground for long enough to avoid both swings of his 2/ combo. The Gwyn fight wasn't too painful after all I had been through, and again, who knows what weapon's in my hand, because by the time I swing it, it'll swap or deal the damage of some other weapon. It really was a pray for good RNG moment. No skill involved. Just how the Gwyn fight should be. I also find it really funny how they give you 20 flasks just before the boss that arguably has the least sippy break windows, but who cares? I got the killing blow with the notched whip, I think, and it was time to leave all this behind me. Sorry, Gwyn, I don't feel like lighting myself ablaze today. I think I'll go chill with the snake guys. I like to think Frampt and Cause are connected like cat dog. This run was a ton of fun, and if you liked it, let me know. It'd be cool to do the same thing in one of the other games, or even with spells or something. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed. Shout out to my members, I appreciate you, and I'll catch you in the next one.